Welcome, you muscular primates, to this tutorial on how to play as the Ikkuro in Distant Worlds 2. My name is DasTactic. Welcome to the channel. Hope you've been enjoying the series. Before I get started, a special thank you to my Patreon supporters and also to anybody who has supported the channel, whether it be through purchasing the game. Like this excellent game can be bought by the link below through my Nexus game store. I do actually have the merchandise and stuff like that as well. So if you're interested and so inclined, then please have a look and see what I've actually got available down there at the various. I don't have too much at this point in time, but there will be more and more merchandise sort of going in over time. Okay, let's get into it. The Ikkuro, who are they? What do they do? These are really cool. These are, again, one of the in the first DLC for the game. So these have just come in the first DLC and really are very, very interesting in the way that they actually are applied. Let's have a bit of a read. So Ikkuro are large muscular primates with short brown red fur. I'll just skip the next bit, but the next one goes down to Ikkuro tend to be intelligent and aggressive, though cautious. Ikkuro are often short-tempered. When provoked or threatened, they can quickly become violent. Despite this, they are generally gentle and affectionate to those that they know well. They're extremely capable mechanics. Ikkuro can repair almost any type of machinery. They also confidently reverse engineer new devices they encounter. In fact, they often end up improving the machine when they reassemble it. So anyway, I'll just go through now what the actual, who they are, what are they? These are big apes, essentially. They're just like this is Planet of the Apes. Planet of the Apes without the gorillas, if you know what I mean. These are very big, very powerful, very strong, but they're also very, very passive, and so they're meaning that they're very slow to anger. It does say that they can be short-tempered. I haven't seen that with them, to be honest. They are a very nice faction to play. They are very peace-loving, and we'll go through this anyway. I'm just trying to think of a context, that would sort of make sense. I can only sort of really think of it as like an advanced Planet of the Apes without the gorillas. Would be probably, and that's not a very good description at all, actually. Or they're not even space hippies because they're big, muscular sort of space hippies. The big blue guy out of the Marvel universe, I forget what he is. Like there's a sort of like actually is that the Marvel universe? Yeah, actually it is the X-Men. The big blue ape-like creature out of the X-Men. Think of him. Like he's actually probably a good indication of what these guys are like. Again, very sort of technical. Very passive. It's the same exactly the same personality. Except he is what these sort of guys are like. All right, let's go through their personality traits. So aggression. So they are passive at -20, which is fairly low passivity. This is also then going to mean that they don't handle wars all that well. So they're not going to be wanting to stay in a war for very long at all. They're very cautious at +11, so they're careful about what they do. So they are very considered. They don't rush their decisions. Their dependability is super high. This is extremely dependable at +50. There's no one else that comes even close to that. If we have a look at the Actarians, I think is like +5. Certainly the Boscarans are -40, so they're on the other end of the spectrum. Humans are neutral. The Teekans, neutral. Mortallans, actually, Mortallans are very dependable as well. That's right. I was trying to think, who's the other one that's actually up there as well? So again, their word is their bond in this instance with the Ikkuro. So extremely dependable. Their reproduction rate of +5 is moderate. It's actually low. 6 is sort of the average in the galaxy, so they're a bit lowish in through there. Migration tendency is +10. They're adventurers. They do like to go out. Nothing like the Teekans. The Teekans are +30. They love ending up all over the place. But the Ikkuro will actually happily migrate around everywhere, and their assimilation rate is 0, so they're just sort of middle of the road as far as being able to assimilate them is concerned. Now look at what they can actually settle on. Now they don't tend to always settle on these planets, but this is actually the power of the Ikkuro. Is one of their big strengths is where they can actually end up going. Now forest, desert savanna, marshy swamp, mangrove swamp, these are all 50 plus the suitability modifier in there as well. Then we've got the grasslands is 10, ocean, continental and ice tundra. So they do have a wide range of colonisation suitabilities available to them. It doesn't play out that way so much, but they do actually have more colonisation than anyone else. So they actually can expand over a long game. They can sort of do a peaceful expansion through the galaxy fairly well. Their bonuses: troop recovery rate of plus 10%, damage control plus 20%. We'll talk about this in just a minute. This is big. Plague curing of plus 20% and plague containment. Doesn't really matter much with those. It may later on, actually, when they bring the Shakturi expansion out towards the end of 2023. That could be interesting to sort of see if that actually has a bearing when the Shakturi expansion does come out. Special features. Now this is again these have only come out initially with the DLC. The rest of the 7, so the Dayut and the Ikkuro do actually have these special features. The other 7 will actually ultimately get these. But they're not here at the time of me recording this particular series. So if you've watched these for any of the other factions and notice that it is different for them, it's because they will be working on these in the coming months at time of recording. Anyway, let's go through what these actually are. So census diplomacy, so plus 5 threshold to sign new treaties, plus 2 long-term trust gain for both empires for all treaties with the Ikkuro, meaning that because of their dependability and that their word is bond, when they go into so it's harder for them to actually sign a new treaty. So there's a threshold to sign the new treaty, so that it's got to sort of go back in, it's got to meet a higher standard. But once it gets there, there is the trust that's gained through that particular treaty is the bond for life. And so when they enter a treaty, they're there forever. Respect for life, so negative 10 happiness if bombard or destroy a world, or choosing extermination as a population policy for a colony. They can still enslave populations without actually impacting their happiness, but they hate to cause loss of life. And so bombardment is not something that they embrace at all, and you'll see this in the tech tree. Secrets of life, so plus 5 happiness to all colonies for 1 year when they first colonize a new type of world. Now that can also mean if they peacefully take over, or even not peacefully, if they invade and take over, because they can do that as well, but they would more likely do the peaceful takeover of another faction, for example, another race, an independent colony, and when they incorporate them into their society, the whole society is then more happy because it's a different type of world. Now, it doesn't just mean groups of worlds, like sort of the continental style worlds, but it also would mean if they've never been to a forest planet before and then they colonize their first forest planet, for 1 year they get plus 5 happiness. Now, happiness in the world, in my head, whenever I hear the word happiness, I'm thinking stability and I'm thinking money. So that's sort of how they end up abstracting their way out through the system. So it just means that you're going to be generating a little bit more money and contentment, essentially, or even contentment ends up being money. So it should just mean that you end up a little bit better off with your income. Protection for life, so plus 5 happiness to all colonies for 1 year when you sign a new non-aggression or defence treaty with another faction, which is big as well. So there is incentive for you to play as part of federations, which is great. Disharmony, so negative 10 happiness for 1 year when war breaks out between Ikkuro and another faction. And so that's bad. So they try to avoid wars if they can, but if they're in a war, they're in a war, basically. But they also, their war weariness is not very good. Okay, so that's where we are with those. Starting tech, so they've got the early beam weapons, the earlier area weapons, ground combat, and basic colonization. So they start with basic colonization. This is actually a big one because basic colonization is an expensive tech to actually go and get. And so if you can start with that, that's incredibly good. Now, again, at time of recording, this only applies to pre-warp. That should apply soon at time of recording to just any tech start that you actually have. So if you did choose tech level 0, I think you'd still get the basic colonization at that point. So I think that's where that is. I may be wrong about where that is in the tech tree. Actually, I may be wrong about that. Anyway, we'll figure it out when we get in there. Ikkuro Tech, they've got a lot of stuff in here. This is actually quite interesting. And you can see there we've got I might do both the disallowed tech and the approved tech. There's a big list of things that they can't do, and so we'll go through these and I'll try to correlate them down and explain what's going on here. Fusion beam, they have a fusion beam that they can sort of go and get. They've got an organic hull. Now this is really, really strong. And I'll talk about this when we actually can see the numbers, because this actually makes a massive difference to their ships. Their ships are incredible. Splinter pods as well. These are assault pods. So even like they're big, strong apes. They're the second best troops in the galaxy at time of recording, so they're up there, and so they can actually do these police type actions with their splinter pods. Now they've got limited biome shaping facility, and then a biome shaping facility comes off this as well, enhanced biome shaping facility. So they've got these shaping facilities essentially that come on through. And if we have a bit of a look down through here, what we'll notice is that we have, other than these are all the exterminators down through this side, the atomic devastators, etc. The assault pod they don't have because they've got the splinter pod, so they don't need the assault pod. So that's actually something that they just don't require because they've got their own. But then they don't have any of the terraforming facilities, and this looks like it's a bit of a contradiction in terms. Why would you not have terraforming, when there's somebody who loves colonizing planets? And the reason is these shaping facilities. These are much more powerful than terraforming. Terraforming is what you do to a planet to make it adapt to your faction. Shaping, I guess, the way of thinking about it would be that you change yourself to adapt to the environment of the planet that you're going onto. And so it gives them, it's a more powerful way for them to be able to go on to different planets. They also, it doesn't say it in here, but they also have an extra slot in the colony tree for colonization as well. So they can go one step further and get an extra 5% colonization than anybody else in different types of colonies. So again, colonization is, these guys are really good at colonization, really, really good at it. So even though that's saying the terraforming is not available, it actually is through their own tech. Okay, the race victory conditions. So lose the fewest ships and bases in the galaxy. So they do want to play defensively. Control the largest forest colony in the galaxy, just so they can swing around doing their ape stuff. Have the most spaceports in the galaxy. So make free trade agreements with 30% of all empires in the galaxy, and build the Coloros Medical Academy at a colony. So these are other things that they sort of want to then aim for. So again, very peaceful. A very peaceful existence. Their preferred government is just the harmonious utopia. And so this is actually theirs very, very specifically. They can actually do democracy and feudalism as well. So they have a very limited range of what they can actually then go and do with their allowed governments. I like this. I sort of hope that they make the other 7 a bit like this as well, to be honest. Now, the infantry is quite interesting. Let's have a quick look at the Mortallon, which are the strongest. We'll just use them as a comparison. The Mortallon have got an attack of 140 and a defense of 210. The Ikkuro have got an attack of 134, so 6 less than, basically the same, and a defense of 201, so 9 off the what the Mortallon can do. So they're very, very strong with their actual infantry. So their Sentinel forces is what their infantry force is called. The most liked race, they actually really like the Quamino, and the Quamino are coming in the next DLC as well, by the way. So if you're watching this, when the DLC has been released, I'll most likely add on to this particular tutorial series with the new factions as they become available. So the Quamino is up there. Securans they like as much as themselves. So the Securans they also actually will happily sort of peacefully coexist with the Securans. And then the Wekaris is -10 back and through there. Now they have burning hatreds as well, which is interesting for a group that's so peaceful. If you've been watching the other racial tutorials, like for the other factions, it's rare that we sort of see peace-loving groups feel so strongly about their hatred. And so they have a burning hatred of the Dayut and the Boscara, and even the Artuk is -80. And if we compare them, for example, to someone like the Tikans, who are also fairly peaceful, theirs is only 50%. They have a dislike. The Ikkuro have a burning hatred. So there's sort of contradictions in terms with everything with this. They don't like the sneakiness of the Dayuts or I guess the hive mind aspects of the Boscara. It doesn't sort of fit in with the destructive, I guess, aspects of them. So these are a fun faction to play. It's funny how many people say this was their favourite faction from Distant Worlds 1. It's a faction I hardly ever played in Distant Worlds 1, but it's really, really nuanced. I hope I've sort of explained enough just at this stage as to why you may want to consider playing them. Let's go in and actually start this one and have a look at their actual unique government. All right, so here we are at the forest moon of a Tust, where they all live in the forests. Okay, so we'll just go across to empire, government. Now, really, we don't have much we can compare it to. We've only really got feudalism or democracy, and I don't think it's, in this case, I don't think you'd sort of, the others aren't going to really give us much of a good feel of anything, to be honest. So I guess in one sense, if you, I might put democracy up just so I've got it next to it, just so you can sort of have a bit of a look at in a comparison. If you were going to use feudalism is going to be much more warrior-like, if you did want to sort of use them in a warrior-type fashion. But I think that democracy would, I don't think you'd ever choose it, to be honest, but anyway, it may be what you choose it. I'll just leave it on there, but we'll focus very much on the other side. Population growth is only 5% for the harmonious utopia. Wariness is the same across this at -30, so they do really tire quickly in war. They don't like being in wars for a long time at all. Counter-espionage, they're a bit more open, so they actually do, their society is easy to infiltrate, so the Dayut can actually get in, or any of the other spy operations can get in relatively easy. Not as easily as a democracy, but certainly easily enough. Diplomacy is up by 10%. All research is down, so they're actually not, they're not research focused. They're much more about peace and harmony and living with nature. So it's not something where they're focusing on trying to learn all the time. Their colony happiness has got +20, which is massive. That's actually, this is a big one in terms of their growth, in terms of their income, things like this. That's a big number. Troop recruitment rate is small. It doesn't matter much in the game, to be honest. But you know, it's harder for them to catch up. If they get behind in their troop recruitment, it's going to be a problem for them. Mining rate, they, again, because they're all about harmony, they don't, mining is bad for them, so that's a bit of a problem. It's going to be hard for them to sort of keep on top of their resources at -25. The tourism income is high at +25. That's worth pursuing. If you like any opportunity you have for a resort base, take it. The facility maintenance savings are down, so any facilities are going to cost you a little bit more to actually have on your planets. They're all actually sort of fairly normal. Now, the migration factor, this is actually quite interesting. Migration factor is +2. So this increases or reduces migration to an empire's colonies, making them more or less appealing for immigration from citizens of foreign empires. You are going to be attracting groups from outside your empire to come and live on your planets. You are creating this harmony, this utopia, a multicultural utopia where others will be compelled to come and settle. So you'll end up attracting population. Your population will grow not just from your own sort of slow growth, but also through attracting other populations to come and settle on your worlds. And so this is actually unique as well. Like, this is a very interesting one, the migration factor. And then we've also then have leadership. It goes for 20 years when it then holds an election. And when there is an election, there's a mild boost, similar to what we see over here with democracy, which is 8 years. And these only come from the ambassadors. Again, it's this relationship that they have with other factions. It's what's important to them in this utopia that they're trying to sort of then go and build. You can see it's not perfect. It's not sort of like a full-blown way of the ancients or anything like that. It's this is very much a it's heading towards that way. It's a hippie lifestyle in space. All right, so the startup situation we have, we have research completed basic recreation systems and basic medical systems. So we end up getting these, and what these do is these allow us to then put these onto spaceports and improve the happiness of any colony with a spaceport. And so everyone eventually gets them pretty early, to be honest. So it's not world breaking to get those, but it is actually fairly useful to sort of know that one is actually there. All right, let's look at their ships and their tech. And so we'll just go through what these actually are. All right, so what we actually have is off the early beam weapons, they can skip over this one here and just go straight for their fusion beams. So this is actually an Ikkuro only tech. Again, it's just a bit better than the other than the standard beams down through this side. The range is a little bit better. If we have a look at, for example, at the M in the middle there, so the Thorn Beam M version 2 has got a range of 1210 and a damage of 28 at a damage rate of 3.29. Theirs is a range of 1300, so it actually has better range and a damage of 5.5 per second, basically. So it's a fair bit more powerful. And then again, they skip over the next one and then they can go for this one over through here as well. So that's their unique beam weapon that they actually have ultimately, which is actually fairly good. That's fairly good. But when we start to look at the other things that they actually have, they really come into their own. Now, this is also where they can't do things. And so we've got the bombardment weapons. Cannot do any bombardment weapons at all. We can't research those. We can, of course, either steal the tech or trade the tech and can put them on, but then it impacts our happiness, so we don't want to be doing that one if we do use those weapons. Now, the assault pods. It's the assault tactics. Where's the assault pods? I may be in the wrong spot here. I'll just keep on having a bit of a look through. Here we are. So after starship maneuvering, we don't have shipboarding anymore. So the assault pods we don't actually go for. So we don't go and get them. Doesn't matter though, because we've got the regenerating hull splinters. These are assault pods that we actually have. And so these are the Ikkuro only way of actually sort of attacking other ships. And so it's got like regenerating hull. This will then, if we have a bit of a comparison between these, and I haven't actually done this one yet, but assault strength 75, so that's the same. Boarding range is 1,000. This is actually 1,500. So we've got a longer boarding range to send these actually in. The energy usage is 5. The pod speed is 250. Shield penetration of 50. So 5, 250, 50. This is 5, 300 and 75. So it's better at getting through shields. The speed is double that of a normal assault pod. The launch rate, I think, was the same every 20 seconds. Yes, it is. And then the ion defense is the same as well. So slightly better than the standard assault pod. And then, of course, we've got the same sort of dealing through here. We just keep on getting more and more of those. So nothing to write home about, but it is a slight advantage. Okay, let's now go down to the things we actually end up through here. Now, this is a bit of a game changer. Under your deep space damage control, you can still have damage controlled units if you wanted to, but the Ikkuro have this rapid hull regeneration. This is the SF-27 organic hull. Essentially, it means living ships. They've been able to sort of get ships that can now repair themselves. And so we can see down through here, the damage reduction is 45%. Let's have a look at it and compare it to this one in through here. It's 30% for the damage reduction. The standard one has got a damage repair of 0.1 per second. Theirs is 0.5 per second. It's 5 times faster repair rates than what the others have got. Now, the next one we don't actually have. You've got the component ion defense there of 5. We've got a component ion defense there of 10. So this thing will protect itself fairly well. But it's got an extra slot there. 1% per second is a chance to actually repair a destroyed item. Nobody else has got that. So it means that these ships can be, completely riddled with fire, really in trouble, have escaped somehow the actual combat and are sitting in deep space, just sitting there. And usually, if that's the case for ships, they just sit there for the whole game until they get destroyed or whatever. But in this case, these things will slowly sort of build themselves back into the point where they're actually fully operational again. So it means that they can sort of come in and out, like the damage reduction of 45% is massive, and that repair rate of it means that when they're in combat, they're just, even though they're being hit, they're actually fixing up stuff as they go. Really, really interesting. This is actually quite an interesting tech to actually end up getting. So that's actually it through there, and then it just gets better and better from that point forward. So this is something that is a big game changer for the Ikkuro once they actually do get these and put them on their ships. So it just makes them into organic hulls that live and grow and repair incredibly strong. A bit like, I guess, there was a German science fiction show. I forget what it's called. Anyway, there'll be probably someone in the comments will have written what that one actually is. I can't think of what it is, but they had like a big bug-looking ship. It sort of repaired itself over time and things. It's the same sort of deal here. Anyway, that's what they have there. Let's go down to colonization, because this is actually where it gets fairly interesting. You'll notice that, basic colonization, you do start off with that one through there. So you do end up having this one a little bit, which it does give you the colonization module, so you can colonize quickly if you are playing in the Tech 0 or pre-warp. not tech level 0 at the moment won't have it, but that will be fixed. That is a bit of a bug, but it will. So you can actually get to that one. I actually thought it was this one here that I was talking about, but it's not what we want. It's basic colonization is what you start with. Now you have all of these different colonizations. So for example, if we pick on a like a desert colonization or a continental colonization, which actually which one is it? Is it temperate? Temperate does the forest and grasslands. And so what this one does is it gives you a and this is available to us as well as the Ikkuro. So temperate colonization, you get like a -5 back in through this side, and then you have improved temperate in through here as well with -10 coming in off the other side. So you end up with extra stuff, and I think there's even another one that appears. I don't know if there's a third or if that's it. Yeah, just went and checked it actually. I may be wrong about that. I thought there was like a third area that came off the other side, but it would be there now if it was there, but we don't actually get to see it. What they have though is that they do actually have the improved colonization down through here, and so this is where they do the shaping, so the biome shaping facility, and so it is better than the improved colonization back over this other side. Also, they don't have to go through and get one of these to then start to get the enhanced colonization. They basically have their own from this tree over this side, and so this one does give them quality improvement amount of 10%, damage repair rate to the planets of like 2% per year, and also quality improvement rate of 1% per year, as opposed to this one here being 2, 1, and 5. So it does actually have another 10% that it can. So it's got an extra 5% on top of the basic colonization, and then as we come back across into here, this one then takes it up to 15, 20. 25, and then 25 in there as well, but with higher rates, I guess. Yeah, higher rates of improvement. So that's the shaping, as opposed to the top of the tree there is 20, yep, so 15. So it's just a little bit ahead of what the other colonization actually is. It's funny, I thought there was supposed to be a third one there. I may be wrong about that. Anyway, I hope I haven't given any misinformation to anyone. But this actually is quite cool the way it sort of does work with the Ikkuro, but like with these abilities. It does allow them to colonize other worlds much more easily than the other players. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it is quite substantial when you're looking at the number of colonies, potential colonies you could have. In fact, let's just as an exercise. I did have to restart, so I'm in a different area right now. But if we have a quick look at, for example, colonization. Oh, there's nothing in this one. It's not seeing anything. Don't know why. Okay. There's no potential colonies. I just thought as an exercise, I might just look and see if there was anything nearby that was colonizable for us to sort of show the differences. But anyway, there's not. I don't have anything at all. Oh well, that didn't work out all that well, did it? Right, let's have a look at the ships. What have we got? We have, under the basic escorts, 2 large slots, which is actually fairly substantial, and 3 defense slots. So powerful ships we're looking at it through here. The improved escorts, we've got only 2. That's interesting. There's only 2. Oh yeah, 2 large there. 3 defenses. So the defenses are up. The size of the weapon mounts is up as well. I don't know how you squeeze things onto a ship like this, but anyway, we've got them there. And then the heavy escort has got 1 standard with 2 large. We'll have a look at that in just a minute as to what they... I haven't played much of the Ikkuro at this time, so we'll have a bit of a look together at the angles and sort of see what we can actually make sense, what sense we can make of that one. The frigates have got 3 large and 1 standard, which is interesting. 4 defense. So we're looking at strong defense here, actually, which is quite cool. The interstellar destroyers back in through here as well. 3 and 3. That's a lot of weaponry. 5 defense as well. It's a lot of weaponry, a lot of defenses, I've got to say, in comparison. The multi-role starships back in through here. 4 and 6. Sorry, my dogs are barking. I think there's a delivery guy outside. Okay, so 8 defences there for the multi-role. That's good. Capital ships, we start to come back down. Actually, when do we start to get? We've got 1 hangar there, and 1 hangar there as well in that one. We won't have any of the back that far. But these again, look, the overall impact of these is looking fairly good. Then we start to sort of, I think it drops off a little bit with the weaponry, but still not too bad. Gee, a lot of defences again. Very defensive ships. Yeah, 4 hangars there. So anyway, let's have a look and see what the actual hulls look like. So we'll start with the escort, which will be your standard sort of starting position for the pre-warp, and we'll just go across and have a bit of a look. Okay, so the two are coming in off the side. These are a bit like the Harkonish, where they've got the broadside appeal. They can still hit behind. It's just not ideal, not like the 270 from the Dayut. The Dayut is good, but these are big. So they've got big slots in there if they do want them. Again, more of a broadside sort of aspect. You almost would go with, you probably end up going with a point defense on one of them, like a beam point defense, and then maybe a missile on the other or something like that, or a torpedo. It's just some way of sort of being able to use like a seeking weapon along with a beam weapon, just to sort of keep the point defense pointing at least in one direction of where the issues are coming from. Because I think that the space on the ship would be hard to actually make use of two big mounts on that other side, and also that it would technically you'd be able to hit with either of these directly from the front and directly from behind, but it's nowhere near as good as having a 270 by having the 180 in through there. Even though it's a big mount, you just won't make use of it. We'll just go across, add new patrol escort, which will be faster. Again, same deal in through there, just more engine mounts. Go to the heavy escort. Same there, but we do actually now have a 360 in the front. This becomes much more useful. Having a 360 medium up there means we've got our point defense up the top there, meaning we can do whatever we like from in here. Again, torpedoes, could be anything really. So this one could be a fairly useful design. The broadside, I don't like the broadside in terms of the power it can deliver, but it's still actually not bad. So certainly, like using torpedoes here would certainly be doable, and with a point defense in the middle there. Let's have a look at the frigates. Standard frigates and through that side. Again, broadside. We've got a big 360 there, a 120 360. That's interesting. That is actually really quite interesting, because that means that you don't have to use seeking weapons for that one. That's the first time we've seen something that big in 360 this early. And then we've got the like a medium weapon mount through there. And then you've still got other large. They can really pack a punch here. If you can actually squeeze the weaponry on, it's a lot. Then you've got like a lot of protection there as well, with shielding and armor if you do want it. And then once you've sort of put that damage control unit on, you've got very strong ships. Very strong ships. So it's not bad actually, is it? It's quite interesting to sort of have a bit of a look at this one. Okay, then we'll have a look at add new at the destroyer. And so this is again broadside in the front. We've got a big front-facing weapon there as well. Almost feels like a bit of a sort of spinal mount type weapon, but they don't have spinal mounts really in the game so much. We've got the small mounts on the back and then one on the rear. Not as useful because we don't actually have a 360 to look after point defense. So probably would put a point defense there, but then that's going to chew up, at least 11 of your space. Yeah, it's a bit of a hard one to know whether to put point defense on all three of those, and then still try to have enough to make good use of the space available to use these. Plus, you've then got the 5 defenses. Tricky prospects. It certainly does give you options to sort of consider when you are looking at what this one actually does do. Let's just go back out and add new, and then finally go to the light cruiser. So these are not designed for for that. With this stuff in mind, I guess the Ikkuro are not a warlike faction, so the actual layout is nothing like, for example, a Dayut, who where it's all very defined, with those crossing fields and things. This one here, we've got broadsides again, which is interesting. We do actually have a 270 in the front there, which is what have we got there? That's a 19. So we've got a small point defense. That's actually useful, I've got to say. That is actually useful. The fact that it can now hit the front and the back of the ship with beam defenses is good. You've got one at the back there as well, and then you've just got sort of like one front facing with a couple of broadsides as well. So again, it looks to me, with the broadside aspect of the ship, I always sort of think in terms of seeking weapons, like either torpedoes. Torpedoes you need to get in close. which I don't know if you'd be wanting to do that with these ships. And so you've got torpedoes, and then you've also got missiles, which can stay at long distance. You do need some ships to be able to get in close, though. So yeah, you'd have to sort of pick and choose which ones you would actually send in and which ones you just sort of stay back firing missiles at different things. One of the things I would suggest that you have a good look at in through here if you are going to be playing the Dayut, and I'll just use this to sort of finish this one off. This is a tip I probably should have done earlier, is be mindful of the of when you actually how you set the retreat parameters, because if this thing can repair itself quickly, you may want to get it out of fights and bouncing in and out a lot in the actual attacks. So you've got like a whole range of different things. By default, the game uses 20% of non-defense components damaged. I would strongly suggest, and I do this with most factions to be honest, is I go up to shields below 20% and armor below 50%, particularly when you've got such high defense ships and ships that can repair themselves. You may want to go when any non-defense component is damaged, jump out of the system at that point. But 20% of non-defense components damaged, that's a lot of damage to your ship before you start to jump, and usually you don't make it when it's set to this one. So that's why I like to have it set usually to 20 and armor below 50. But you may get away with it with these guys at any non-defense component. As soon as you take any damage to the internals of your ship, bang, you're out of there. And so that's going to be something that it may already be too late, but I would experiment with those two there, playing as the Ikkuro. Anyway, guys, I'm going to leave it there. So that's sort of just my little rundown of the Ikkuro. Hope it's been helpful, and I will catch you in the next episode.